Welcome back to Views with Hughes and Jennifer News. This is Jerome Hughes. Now, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, the latest development that has basically rocked Disney revolves around Kathleen Kennedy. On February 6th, when Elon Musk publicly, financially backed a lawsuit against Disney, Kathleen Kennedy's leadership immediately became a central talking point, and Kathleen Kennedy has long been the figurehead behind Disney's major franchises, and now her direction is actually being challenged in court. Now, many of you have been pointing out for years that Kathleen Kennedy has steered franchises like Star Wars into the ground, and Kevin Feige ruined the MCU in the wrong direction. However, it wasn't until this lawsuit supported by Musk, that the general public been noticing just how much Kathleen Kennedy had shifted Disney's priorities. Now, the lawsuit hit the mainstream media and painted a grim picture of Kathleen Kennedy's tenure at the helm of Disney. And this is no surprise, but let's be honest here. You see, Kathleen Kennedy's problems at Disney didn't start with Musk's lawsuit. You see, fans of Star Wars and the MCU were already growing tired of what they felt were lackluster movies, and many pointed the finger at Kathleen Kennedy. Now, Kathleen Kennedy's push for social justice narratives over storytelling had already alienated a large portion of the fan base from Star Wars, but when Musk came into the picture backing a lawsuit from Gina Carano that directly focused on Disney under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership with Lucasfilm of anti-male sexism, everything escalated. And people who, hadn't previously noticed the changes under Kathleen Kennedy were suddenly paying attention. And as if that wasn't enough, Musk funded another lawsuit accusing Disney and therefore even Kathleen Kennedy's projects like Lucasfilm Star Wars and Marvel under Kevin Feige of engaging in exclusionary hiring practices. The clip that went viral showed just how, entrenched these policies had become under Kathleen Kennedy. Now, the particular sentiment of no way we're hiring white men for this job became a crazy criticism of Kathleen Kennedy's approach. Now, Kathleen Kennedy's response or lack thereof was striking. And Disney Lucasfilm under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership was incredibly slow to react to these lawsuits behind the scenes, it was actually clear that moves were being made under Kathleen Kennedy's guidance, such as the sudden quote unquote resignation of a certain president, which though many speculated Kathleen Kennedy had orchestrated the firing. And additionally, delays and cancellations of several projects, all tied to Kathleen Kennedy's vision, fueled this belief that she was scrambling behind closed doors. But despite all these internal movements, Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm remained silent in the public eye. Now, it wasn't until recently that Kathleen Kennedy had finally broke that silence, okay? But this is interesting because Kathleen Kennedy and Daisy Ridley, two people in modern Star Wars era, came forward with public responses, and Kathleen Kennedy made it clear that Star Wars wasn't going to be changed for those who were complaining. And now Kathleen Kennedy's stance was firm, but it didn't go over well with many fans. See, shortly after, Daisy Ridley added her thoughts, saying that, she couldn't change how some men perceive women and stuff. But let's be real here. Kathleen Kennedy's Star Wars isn't necessarily the first time, women have been part of the franchise. You see, anyone remember Princess Leia, or have y'all forgot about her? You see, Kathleen Kennedy and her push to position Ridley as new face of Star Wars as a feminist Star Wars feels out of touch with the rich history of the franchise itself, which had already featured strong female characters in the first place long before Kathleen Kennedy's tenure. Now, the fact is that Kathleen Kennedy has made two very public responses to the backlash and lawsuits, and they show a clear pattern, and all revolves around Kathleen Kennedy. In fact, that Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm are fighting back rather than acknowledging any potential missteps, and Kathleen Kennedy has chosen to go ahead and double down on her decisions rather than listen to the criticism and respond adequately. Now, despite the backlash, Kathleen Kennedy and Disney aren't backing down. They even took legal action attempting to, have one of these cases dismissed, but now they failed. And now with Kathleen Kennedy at the helm, this lawsuit is moving full steam ahead. So here's $1 million question right here. Is Kathleen Kennedy making a smart move by simply, refusing to budge. Whether you think Kathleen Kennedy's strategy is wise or even foolish doesn't change the fact that, the course she's chosen. And what we need to focus on is that on what's going to happen to Kathleen Kennedy and Disney Lucasfilm as a result of these legal battles. But what will the repercussions be for Kathleen Kennedy and Ridley's statements? And how will it actually impact, the company's overall success under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership? I think we all know the answer to the question, but to fully understand this, we have to actually ask, what is Kathleen Kennedy's main goal as the head of, Disney, Star Wars, Lucasfilm, and other major franchises? At the end of the day, Kathleen Kennedy's job is to make money for Disney, and that means creating movies that engage audiences and rake in box office revenue. But Kathleen Kennedy needs to bring in profits from, the ticket sales to merchandise. And that's been the Disney model for years. Now, if these lawsuits under Kathleen Kennedy's watch from Gina Carano don't hurt Disney's ability to make money, then Kathleen Kennedy might be able to brush them off. But if they do affect Disney's financial standing, well, Kathleen Kennedy could face serious consequences, or maybe Bob Iger actually gets some hair on his chest to fire her. But here's the thing: most lawsuits wouldn't necessarily derail a company as big as Disney. However, Kathleen Kennedy's, leadership has made this lawsuit different. You see, it's about more than just money. It's about whether Kathleen Kennedy and Disney and Lucasfilm can still entertain audiences. Now, the core of the criticism is that Kathleen Kennedy's push for social justice has made Disney's stories less entertaining, if you ask me. Now, moviegoers, both men and women, have spoken out about how Kathleen Kennedy's vision seems more focused on messaging rather than just crafting fun, engaging films. Now, under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, we saw that, Disney and Lucasfilm storytelling has taken a back seat, and that's a big problem. You see, when Lucasfilm under Kathleen Kennedy prioritizes more righteousness over entertainment, or the lack thereof, turns out the audience tunes out, and then that's where even there's even been talk about how Kathleen Kennedy's policies influence hiring decisions, with one executive refusing to hire someone because they weren't diverse enough. And this is what happens under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, not only Bob Iger's, but Kathleen Kennedy's as well. And it's not what audiences want to hear from a company that should be focusing on making great movies. And this is what happens when you forget that the core audiences are the parents. But of course, there will always be people who say it's just a vocal minority complaining online. But what if that were true? And Kathleen Kennedy's Disney wouldn't be, seeing a massive drop in box office revenue. Now, under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, Disney profits have been, declining drastically. And compare that to just a few years ago when, Kathleen Kennedy wasn't driving these social justice initiatives as aggressively, and, Disney's movies were still pulling in huge profits, but the numbers don't lie, and they paint a clear picture. Kathleen Kennedy's direction is not resonating with the general public, or as we call the normies. However, not every movie under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership has been a failure and stuff, but it's like, Disney, even on any other movie under Disney and stuff has been a failure, and Marvel Studios proved that with Deadpool and Wolverine. But why was it successful? Because under Deadpool 3, the focus was on entertaining people, not lecturing them on something that Bob Iger, Kevin Feige, or even Kathleen Kennedy could learn from. Now, the movie was a huge financial success, proving that when entertainment comes first, the money follows. And Kathleen Kennedy needs to remember that lesson as well. But unfortunately, she's not willing to do that, if you ask me that. But what does this mean for Kathleen Kennedy and Disney moving forward? Now, if Kathleen Kennedy wants to adopt the same way that Deadpool and Wolverine did with their model and focus on making entertaining movies that include everyone, then there's hope for Disney and Lucasfilm. But if Kathleen Kennedy continues to forcing social justice themes into every project, then we can expect more of the same box office failures, okay? Now, let's also circle back to Kathleen Kennedy and Ridley's, recent comments. Rather than acknowledge any room for improvement, Kathleen Kennedy and Ridley are digging in their heels. Now, that's why these lawsuits are, so critical, that they're a direct challenge to Kathleen Kennedy's leadership. And the way that, Kathleen Kennedy has responded so far isn't promising. You see, Kathleen Kennedy has chosen to fight back rather than just reflect on why so many people feel alienated by her vision for Disney and Lucasfilm. But here's the reality. Kathleen Kennedy should be asking herself why her push for inclusion has led to lawsuits and public outcry. Now, when the courts are backing these claims, it's not something that Kathleen Kennedy, can actually afford to ignore. Now, clearly, there's enough merit to these lawsuits for the legal system and to take them seriously, which raises questions about Kathleen Kennedy's leadership at Lucasfilm under Disney. So, what should Kathleen Kennedy do? I mean, if Kathleen Kennedy can find a way to make everyone feel included naturally while still prioritizing audience entertainment, then Lucasfilm will be in a much stronger position. But right now, Kathleen Kennedy is making these changes, behind the scenes. But publicly, I mean, Kathleen Kennedy and Disney and Lucasfilm are still putting on a front of defiance. Now, whether this strategy will pay off remains to be seen, but it's Kathleen Kennedy's move, and we'll only know the outcome once we see how Disney's films perform in the coming years. But as far as I'm concerned, Elon Musk's lawsuit has exposed the cracks in Kathleen Kennedy's leadership at Disney and Lucasfilm. Now, Kathleen Kennedy and her decision to go ahead and fight back rather than just learn from these criticisms is actually telling. And Kathleen Kennedy's success or failure will ultimately depend on whether she can shift her focus back to entertainment and move away from forcing social justice into every film. Now, if Kathleen Kennedy continues down this path, well, the repercussions will be severe. But if Kathleen Kennedy learns from these, particular choices that she made, the bad decisions she made, there may still be hope for Disney and Lucasfilm under the leadership of Kathleen Kennedy and even Bob Iger. So what do you think? Is Kathleen Kennedy's legal battle going to lead to Disney's downfall, or do you think Kathleen Kennedy will find a way to bounce back? Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional thoughts you might have on this particular topic. If you enjoy what I shared in this video, go ahead and smash like button and share far wide across social media. And if you haven't done so already and you enjoyed all the content that I put out there, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, click bell notification so that way you're notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.